Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 31 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010, and we're coming to this week's show off the back of that horrific injury suffered by D'Angelo Dinero. He broke his neck in the Road to Victory tournament. He's going to be out for well over a year. Brother Ray and Brother Devon aren't here either, but they're never here, so they barely even come into my consideration. Nonetheless, that tournament to crown a new number one contender to the World Heavyweight Championship continues tonight. We are, as always, back in the Impact Zone for this show, so let's get into it. And we begin with a video package, a recap of the first round of the Road to Victory tournament, which took place on last week's show. Jeff Hardy defeated Chris Sabin in the opening match before Samoa Joe was controversially removed from the tournament due to an incident between him and Desmond Wolfe. Robert Roode received a bye into the second round, while Abyss defeated D'Angelo Dinero, assisted by an injury sustained to the Pope during the match. Alex Shelley would later pick up a surprising victory over Desmond Wolfe in our main event, himself aided by a hooded man. That's all referring to the incident between Wolfe and Samoa Joe earlier in the night. I'll get more into that during the course of the show. The hooded man hit him with a muscle buster, making it quite clear that it was Samoa Joe behind the attack. Tonight, Jeff Hardy will go one-on-one with Abyss in our main event. The first time they faced, I think, since Jeff Hardy's first run with the company. But first, one half of the Motor City Machine Guns will face one half of the World Tag Team Champions at Beer Money as Alex Shelley faces Robert Roode in the first match of the Final Four. So continuing a couple of storylines there. It's not the best start to the show, but we go into a solid opener. Would have hoped from better between these two, but you see there, Robert Roode defeats Alex Shelley in 14 minutes 44, so it is a long competitive match. The payoff, Robert Roode doing well with a 67, Alex Shelley okay with a 60. These two have good chemistry, which is good to see. And the fact we sent them out to open the show with a steal the show, I wouldn't say they've quite done that. I do hope that our main event's going to be of a better standard than this, but a decent way to start the show and does get the crowd buzzing. After the match, Robert Roode stands tall in the ring. The fresher competitor, that's something we did put over during the match. Alex Shelley was in action last week, whereas Robert Roode got that bye. An updated bracket is then shown on the screen. The commentator is putting over the fact that Robert Roode will be in action next week, 3 nights before Victory Road, against the winner of Abyss v Jeff Hardy, and the winner of that will face Kurt Angle at the pay-per-view. He'll be watching tonight's main event very closely, as will this man. We head to the interview area where Kurt Angle is asked for his thoughts on the tournament so far and his match with Kazuchika Okada later tonight. That's something that was set up on the previous episode of Explosion. Angle tells JB that he thinks Road to Victory has been great and a tournament is a perfect way to crown a worthy number one contender. Another good way to prove yourself is by going up against the champ, an opportunity that Okada has tonight. Before Kurt Angle can expand on his match later in the evening, Desmond Wolfe cuts off the interview, complaining about the injustice of last week. Everybody knows it was Joe who screwed him. Kurt has no objection to this, but says it's really nothing to do with him. He's not the guy making the matches. This causes Wolfe to push Angle. He's just lashing out, and the two men who have a lot of history go nose to nose. Before walking away, Wolfe tells Angle, "Well, you've just made it your problem. Sort it out, champ." So Wolfe putting pressure on Kurt Angle, because he obviously wants another world title shot, as does everybody in this tournament and pretty much everybody in the company, but Wolfe really pushing for it there. We do lose heat to the Road to Victory storyline with this segment, which is quite surprising, but Desmond Wolfe and Samoa Joe has been advanced, Kurt Angle improvising well as we move into the second match of the night. First note there is that Taylor Wilde needs a gimmick change. I'd been thinking that anyway, so that is something that I'm probably going to do pretty soon. But Sarah Del Rey defeats Taylor Wilde. While it is a competitive match, we do get a decisive submission victory for Sarah Del Rey in 8 minutes 22. With the cross arm breaker, she puts in another decent performance. It's a pretty good match, and after the match, she's secured the victory, but Sarah looks to send an additional message to the Knockouts locker room, maintaining the cross arm breaker for just a few more seconds after the bell is rung. She continues to take liberties with Taylor Wilde, resulting in the return of Sarita. We haven't seen her since Slammiversary. She runs down to the ring, and Del Rey, having been in a match, rolls out. She doesn't want to get physically involved at the moment. Sarita stares down the woman who she hit with that huge cutter, technically costing both women their chance at the Knockout Championship at Slammiversary. Del Rey backs up the ramp, and we go into the locker room where Roderick Strong is in a decent segment, approached by Jimmy Jacobs and Mick Foley, the two leaders, I suppose, or the leader and the deputy of the New Age. Jacob says to Strong that Mick spoke with him on Explosion, and he's wondering if Roddy has given his words any further thought tonight. That's another reference to something that happened on Explosion. So again, we're trying to promote the B show via the A show and vice versa. Basically, Mick Foley told Roderick Strong that he needed to look at who his friends were and sort of tentatively trying to recruit him towards the New Age. Before Strong can say anything, however, Jimmy Jacobs is grabbed from behind, an arm around his throat by Awesome Kong, who drags him away from the locker room. Mick is a little bit too slow to react, and when he goes to follow, he can't see Kong and Jacobs. He doesn't know which way they went. Mick heads off to find them, but tells Roderick Strong to think about what they said. They're trying to recruit for the New Age, but there is a more pressing concern at the moment because Awesome Kong has got her hands on Jimmy Jacobs, both Foley and Jacobs improvising well, and Foley's involvement means that's a much better segment than it would have been, I think. It gains heat to the storyline as well, so definitely a good addition so far in terms of the numbers in the game. Jay Lethal is then interviewed, fittingly asked about his upcoming match with Roderick Strong. At Victory Road, Strong will receive his X-Division Championship rematch. Despite the poor month that he's had since Slammiversary, it's still in his contract, so Strong will look to turn around his fortunes in the most emphatic way by becoming the new X-Division Champion. Jay Lethal tells Lauren Brooke that he is looking forward to the match, but Lauren is soon replaced by Maria Kanellis. She tells Brooke that she has a little bit of experience in this kind of thing, but takes the rest of the interview to flirt with Jay Lethal. She doesn't ask any probing or interesting questions, and Jay Lethal eventually invites her to join him at ringside as Lethal Consequences face Jesse Neal and Rhino on Explosion. So, continuing the budding romance between these two, Jay Lethal and Maria both improvising well as they flirt and just begin to develop a relationship, and that is again a solid rating. I think Jay Lethal's promos have been a little bit lower than that in general, so Maria should also be a good addition to his act. Before the third match of the night, which features Bad Influence, the commentators recap the segment from last week where Hernandez called the group out. Specifically, he challenged Matt Morgan to a one-on-one match. Footage is then shown of Hernandez's challenge, which ended with Morgan laying down a stipulation. Not only will Morgan pick the time, date and location for a match with Hernandez, but if he beats him for a third time, his former partner will be forced to leave TNA. Hernandez accepted that challenge, and we don't know when the match is going to take place, but we go into the third match of the night. Good heat, decent wrestling. Kaz and Daniels defeat Generation Me in 11 minutes and 23. Daniels pinning Nick Jackson with an Angel's Wings, but we did have interference involvement from Matt Morgan, Tracy Brooks distracting Matt Jackson and the referee, and this allowed Matt Morgan to get involved. It's a carbon footprint to an unsuspecting Nick Jackson, Daniels then applying the finishing touches, but clearly Morgan's impact having a very big influence on them winning the match. Daniels with a really good performance, Matt Jackson also doing well, Nick looking off his game, and Kazarian also okay. After the match, Bad Influence celebrate in the ring. Matt Morgan rejoins Kazarian and Daniels, another example of what makes them such a successful group. Having Tracy at ringside, having the numbers game generally against their opponents has just meant that they've had a really good run so far. Hernandez is quickly out to confront the group, but the 3-1 number situation means that they're more than ready for him. Morgan tells Kazarian and Daniels to step down. This is just about him and Hernandez, and the two men leave the ring. Hernandez tells Morgan that he wants the match next week. He doesn't want to have to wait until Victory Road or after it. He wants him now and he is done waiting. But Morgan laughs. This is all about power and control for him. And when Hernandez steps up to try and press this, Kaz and Daniels return to the ring and drop him. Morgan then stands over Hernandez, who has once again come out second best, and tells him that they'll fight on his terms and it won't be next week. So yeah, like I said, this is all about the power being in the hands of Bad Influence. Both Morgan and Hernandez improvising well as we end the first hour. The storyline does lose heat, but I think that's just it leveling out. Remember, it had AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy and Sting. I didn't end that storyline and start a new one. We transitioned it into this one, so that's probably why it's going to level out probably at a 60, hopefully a little bit higher than that as we build into their final showdown match. And the second hour starts with another match. We just wanted to let these go out. It's only 12 minutes, but it should be a decent enough match. We wanted them to go all out while telling a story. The story being that Okada is a supremely talented young wrestler, but Kurt Angle did have too much for him. beating him with an angle slam, having escaped an attempted bridging German suplex. It's a really good match, but you can see in the individual ratings that is pretty much entirely on Kurt Angle. The fact that somebody's getting a 39 against him and the overall match is 78, it just shows what a massive help Kurt Angle's going to be to everybody in this company, and that's why partially I think he's just perfect to be the World Heavyweight Champion in this company. The idea that you can pretty much put him against anybody and he'll have a great match. If we'd have put the belt on Bobby Lashley, that certainly wouldn't have been the case. I've also got a change for Okada coming. We're changing his gimmick, but I don't think now's the right time to do it. I think a segment on either Explosion where Larry Sweeney cuts a promo putting that over, or even if it's on next week's Impact, I don't think a match where he loses to Kurt Angle's the time to officially change his gimmick. Kurt Angle stands tall following his hard-fought victory, the World Heavyweight Champion giving a nod of recognition to his opponent, but he clearly isn't a fan of the guy's manager, Larry Sweeney. As Kurt Angle raises his title in the air, the commentators put over that in just 10 nights' time, the World Heavyweight Championship will be on the line at Victory Road. Switching gears then to a serious topic from last week, footage is shown of the aftermath of D'Angelo Dineiro's injury. We don't show the actual neck breaking, but they confirmed that he has suffered that broken neck and will not be cleared to compete for a very, very long time. Taz adds that he knows exactly what the Pope is going through and wishes him a full recovery. Mauro gets the formalities out of the way, confirming that of course that I Quit match won't go ahead at Victory Road. He tells the Pope that there's going to be a spot for him in this company, whatever happens and whenever he is ready to return, and sends his best wishes on behalf of himself and TNA Wrestling. We then get a backstage segment with Mick Foley, and he's having his first proper interaction with Alyssa Flash and Mischief because they are on the hunt for Awesome Kong and Jimmy Jacobs. When they reach the suspected location, Foley warns Alyssa Flash and Mischief to stand back. He's the negotiator. He's going to try and reason with Awesome Kong and possibly Hamada. They have Jacobs as their hostage. As they turn the corner, they see that. Nothing, Foley says, can persuade the former Knockouts Tag Team Champions to release Jimmy Jacobs, who, I'm not sure if he's tied up, but he's certainly unable to escape. Hamada then makes it clear what they want. Victory Road, Knockouts Tag Team titles, tables match. Jacobs shakes his head. He doesn't want them to accept this, but Foley discusses the challenge with Alyssa Flash and Mischief, and they agree, probably mostly because they want Jimmy Jacobs safely returned, that they accept as long as they let Jimmy Jacobs go. But that match will happen at Victory Road now, the rematch for the Knockouts Tag Team titles. Alyssa Flash and Mischief of the New Age will defend against Awesome Kong and Hamada. So a lot of red notes there and losing heat to the storyline. A 43 really is poor. I can't remember specifically what I rated everybody on, but we can see that Hamada, that's just a mistake by me actually, I think. It's not that they were improvising poorly. I think I probably set Jacobs and Foley to improvise, or maybe just Jacobs. That's just a case of me forgetting to tick a box, and it won't happen again. Well, it might, but it shouldn't happen too regularly. Brian Kendrick and Paul London are then approached by Jeremy Borash in their usual backstage hangout. As always, they seem pretty annoyed to have whatever it is they're doing interrupted. When JB asks if they've decided on their upcoming title shot, Brian says that they have. JB asks what the decision is, and London says that they have decided to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship. At Victory Road, Brian Kendrick and Paul London are going to go one-on-one, with the winner becoming the number one contender to the World Heavyweight title. Jeremy asks them if they fear this having any effect on their friendship, but both shrug and tell JB to get out of here. They get back to doing whatever they were doing. They certainly don't seem concerned that there could be any issues arising from this. For the first time on pay-per-view, I can't think of a time in the past, I'll look into this before Victory Road, but Brian Kendrick will go one-on-one with Paul London, and I certainly don't recall ever seeing that match before. London improvising well as we gain heat to their storyline. The fifth match of the night sees the Knockouts champion in action for the first time since she won the title, and she defeats ODB despite Lacey Von Erich and Brooke Tessmacher at ringside. Rain can still pick up the victory, albeit cheating a little bit, says using the ropes for leverage there. That's absolutely fine. She's not doing great in terms of the in-ring ratings, but a 52 is okay. It's still better than Sarah Del Rey. ODB with a 56. She's very much had, I wouldn't say a fall from grace since the start of the year, but she's gone from being one of the top knockouts to a mid-cardish, which I'm fine with at the minute. I think there's a lot you can do with ODB. She's an interesting character, but for the time being, where she had been, she couldn't really continue feuding with Tara, so we needed to cool her off a little bit. I think in the future there will be an opportunity for her to once again become one of the main figures in the division. She's certainly a unique character, but for now she's doing a gimmick where she's a little bit down in the dumps. As she rolls to the outside, Brooke and Lacey check on their mentor, who didn't fare particularly well against the Knockouts champion. Coming out from the back, Tara pushes straight past Brooke and Lacey, shoving them out of the way, essentially walking through them and towards the ring. Tara is done playing games, and she has secured her rematch for Victory Road. She tells Madison Rayne that and quickly goes to leave. She is straight to the point, but Rayne attempts to attack her from behind as she does, showing great reactions. Tara preempts this attempt. She had a feeling this was going to happen, takes control and drops Madison Rayne with a Widow's Peak. She then picks up the title from the ground, holding it in her hands once more. She held it for 6 months before Madison Rayne took it off her, and we can see that Tara is very, very determined to become the next Knockouts champion. Returning from the break, Samoa Joe makes his way down to the ring and says that after speaking with Paul Heyman, he has been advised to come out and talk to Desmond Wolfe. He clearly thinks that this is a bit... he'd rather be fighting him, let's put it that way, but Paul Heyman has suggested they settled their issues and look to find some kind of resolution. Desmond Wolfe is all too happy to come out for this confrontation, never afraid of running his mouth, and he immediately demands that Samoa Joe admits that he attacked him last week. Joe smirks, but he says he doesn't know what Wolfe means. It will just have to go down as a mystery, along with who attacked Samoa Joe early that same night in the opening segment. He doesn't say opening segment. Wolfe is furious and tells Joe that this isn't a joke. He wants Joe to take this seriously, and, well, Joe's demeanour switches. He makes it clear he knows just how serious their issues are. There's no laughing matter as far as he's concerned. Samoa Joe says that at Slammiversary, Wolfe low-blowed him, so he returned the favour the Thursday after. Last week, Wolfe screwed Joe, so Joe screwed Wolfe. It's as simple as that, but this can't continue, this tit-for-tat back and forth, so he has an idea. At Victory Road, neither of them have got a match, so Desmond Wolfe versus Samoa Joe one more time. The only way to win: tap out, pass out, or knockout. Wolfe considers this, he likes it, and he accepts the challenge. There is no physicality tonight, but we confirm that these two will have another match at Victory Road. Slightly different stipulation, both men improvising well and gaining heat to the storyline, and I think that's going to be another great match. They got an 82, I think, at Slammiversary, and that was with Samoa Joe off his game. If both of them are on their game, I think we're going to be in for a really, really great match. Could it challenge Kurt Angle v Bobby Lashley as our best match yet? I think that might be a little bit ambitious, but I'm certainly thinking we could get maybe an 85. We'll see. I could be setting myself up for disappointment there, as we cut to the locker room where Shark Boy is shown surrounded by Mr. Anderson and his buddies Big Rob Terry and Sean Bashir. The three begin pushing Shark Boy around until he falls to the ground. Anderson continues to mock Shark Boy, asking him where his buddies are now. Super Eric isn't here. D'Angelo De Niro isn't going to be here for a long time, so what's he going to do? Sean Bashir then locks in a camel clutch on Shark Boy, with Anderson demanding that he says I quit. He's not going to get his match with D'Angelo De Niro at Victory Road, but he still wants to hear those words. Eventually, Shark Boy succumbs to the bullying and says the words. The Smug Trio then leaving, asking where his superhero is now. Very much trying to continue Anderson's heel push in lieu of him having that actual rivalry with D'Angelo De Niro now. We've got to find something else for him. I've got one of two ideas for Victory Road, and we'll decide on that on the Go Home show. It will be a bit thrown together, but that's what you've got to do when somebody goes out injured. Before the main event, a video package airs, reminding viewers of the dominant 2010 that the Monster Abyss has had. He's yet to be pinned or submitted since the beginning of this new era. Abyss will go one-on-one with Jeff Hardy in the final four of the Road to Victory tournament up next. And we're trying to set this up, and we have done throughout the night, as a really big match. And we don't exactly get the cleanest of finishes, but nonetheless, it had fantastic heat and great wrestling, and it is a really good way to end the show. The only negative note is that we deserved better announcing. Jeff Hardy with a 74. We do need to build him up a bit more. I don't think he's been protected as much as I'd like him to. He's lost quite a few matches. We really want to hammer home that Jeff Hardy's one of our top guys now. Slammiversary, we tried to present him as such in that team with AJ Styles and Sting, but we really need to keep some momentum going, and hopefully this victory over Abyss does just that. A 72 from Abyss. I'm kind of souring on Abyss a little bit. I've been watching clips of him from 2010, and he wasn't at his best then. You could argue that the job of booking him is to try and repackage him in an interesting way, but at the same time, I'm struggling with Abyss's character at the minute, I will say that. The finish of the match sees us go to the outside. Abyss throws Jeff Hardy into the steel steps, dislodging them. This gives Jeff Hardy an idea. When he comes back into control, he lays Abyss out with maybe a drop kick. He falls back onto the steel steps. Jeff Hardy goes to the top rope, hitting a swanton bomb to Abyss, who is laid out on these steel steps at ringside. So a pretty big spot there. Jeff Hardy crawls back into the ring at 9. Abyss tries to drag himself back to his feet, but he cannot get back into the ring before the 10 count, and Jeff Hardy defeats Abyss by count out. Hopefully the fact that we get that big spot just before it does offset it a little bit. I think that would be a really cool, brutal looking spot. Jeff Hardy hitting the swanton bomb to the steel steps on the outside. It is nonetheless a shitty finish, or not ideal. Following a narrow count out victory over Abyss, Jeff Hardy struggles back to his feet. He's putting over his troublesome back once again. It's causing him issues, as it has done throughout his TNA career. Next week, Jeff Hardy will face Robert Roode in the Road to Victory tournament final. And to end the show, Robert Roode comes out to the top of the ramp. Roode has his World Tag Team title over his shoulder and looks extremely confident given the condition of Jeff Hardy. He's only been in one match in this tournament. Jeff Hardy has been in 2 pretty physical matches. Things go from bad to worse for Jeff, however, as Abyss returns to the ring and jumps in from behind. Abyss hits a chokeslam to Hardy before bringing these steel steps into the ring and hitting a black hole slam onto them. Jeff Hardy was already in a lot of pain, like I said. That's going to be even worse now. Throughout it all, Robert Roode just watches on, enjoying what he is seeing. Abyss then leaves up the ramp. Roode stepping to one side, doing his best to avoid him. Roode looks delighted at what has happened, and why wouldn't he? As the show goes off the air, Mauro and Taz promote next week's episode. The Road to Victory tournament comes to an end. The final between Jeff Hardy and Robert Roode. That match will open next week's Impact. We're not waiting to the end of the show. We want to give a bit of a build throughout the course of the episode between the winner of the tournament and Kurt Angle. So the first thing that you see, probably after a recap package actually, will be Robert Roode versus Jeff Hardy in the Road to Victory tournament final next week. It's a 76, which is a good, solid episode of Impact overall. I can't remember what our best segment was. Yes, it's a very fair rating actually. We had our best match, Kurt Angle v Kazuchika Okada. Samoa Joe speaking with Desmond Wolfe was our best segment. And again, next week is that go home show to Victory Road and the final of that tournament. So not much to say really after that show. We got a 1.00 in the rating, so it's pretty much where we've been in recent weeks, 750,000 or thereabouts. Happy with the build to Victory Road so far though. I think we're getting together another solid card. Of course, we don't know the main event until after the opening match of next week's show, but we've already got Desmond Wolfe versus Samoa Joe in their special stipulation match. Unfortunately, that Mr. Anderson D'Angelo De Niro match will have to be changed, like I've said. Brian Kendrick versus Paul London, a Knockouts Tag Team and a Knockouts Championship rematch. So one of them cards, a little bit like you might have got a Backlash card after WrestleMania, where it's quite a few rematches, but hopefully with interesting and different twists that will make it a strong pay-per-view. Hopefully you will join me for the go-home show to the pay-per-view next week with that tournament final between Robert Roode and Jeff Hardy. Thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll be back pretty soon.